Alex is one of the 3 co-chairs for Data Supercluster, which was around from last year, but this year we are augmenting the scope to include bigger data governance and exchange platforms. Please welcome Alex.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I think we all understand that data is sort of central to all of our efforts. Data can be a really broadly defined topic. We can look at data coming from crowdsourced places like YouTube, Facebook, all our social media sites, as well as new sources that are automobiles. Hitachi just recently said there's 25 gigabytes per hour of telemetry data coming out of automobiles, and that data is being provided in the private sector. So one of the things we're looking at is how do we optimize all of these data sets and take on some of these challenges that are common to many of the other action clusters, many of the cities that we've spoken with, and make sure that we're addressing those with some commonality. And one way to do that, of course, is to develop a blueprint, create a document that brings those ideas together, especially where they've been proven in the field, and share those with the other cities that are involved in this. And I think that's a fabulous thing that the NIST is doing, Global Cities Team Challenge. So I'm very excited to be part of this effort. Jason Whittet is also there, and Bob Bennett from Kansas City as co-chairs. We're the 3 co-chairs. I'm representing basically the innovation side from the grassroots level. I've had a number of small businesses, and I've recently worked for a couple of years for a company called Itron, which is one of the largest smart meter companies. So we investigated streetlight technology and how you could diversify streetlight meters and metering and control in a way that's respectful of privacy and creates business use cases. So my background is in that space. So this is a rather complicated slide, and we're basically looking at how do we optimize this investigation that we're doing at the supercluster level so that it makes most value, creates most value for those cities that take on the blueprint. And of course, there's been tons and tons of ideas. There's lots of cities that are working on projects like this, and they're also sharing those. And so we're collecting that. We've recently reached out to everyone and said, if you have a white paper, a position paper, some information about what your company is doing in terms of offering solutions, what your city is doing in terms of proving those solutions add value or increase productivity in some way, then we'd like to see those white papers, and we'd like to archive those so that they're generally available to everyone who's a member here. So there are opportunities also that we've explored in terms of optimizing private data, and the access to private data. We know that there's that 25 gigabytes per hour of telemetry data coming from automobiles. That's being delivered to the automobile manufacturers so that they can improve their vehicles, basically. And that data we'd like to get access to. There have been cities that have looked at how do we access that data directly. And it's not clear yet how you could do that. There's lots of different vendors for automobiles. They all have different policies. We're looking at how do you normalize that so every city can get access to that data. And then how can we make it efficient by offering guidelines and blueprints, not so much standards, because there's lots of standards out there, to allow organizations, innovators, and cities to make use of that private data. So there's tons of opportunities here. We've reached out to city leadership. We've got a number of those cities involved. I could go through these details later on, but I'm going to run out of time really quickly if I don't pick it up. So if you're a member of any of these broad areas, please see me afterwards. We're going to have a meeting as well coming up tomorrow afternoon. Just a little background and update. We started this, we kicked it off in 2017 in December with a webinar that was well received. We had a lot of people attend that. Had about 82 people or so sign up, and the list is growing. So there's tons of interest in this data supercluster because we have to address privacy. We have to address licensing. So when we were done with that meeting in January, post the webinar kickoff, we had a face-to-face meeting. we came up with these high-level areas of interest that those people that attended expressed. So everything from data access administration, how do you issue credentials, how do you revoke credentials if you're going to access that data, so the maximum number of people can get access to the data, the maximum benefit can be there for that data that you're hosting as a city, or if you're a private organization that you're allowing other people to access. These are basic trust-associated issues, as was mentioned before. How do you create those credentials? How do you revoke them? On what basis do you do that? And that starts the process. We also have to be able to find this data. So CRADA is a very good opportunity or a model, let's say, of a place where lots and lots of data has been brought together. And so you can look at various indices, but you have to be able to look to that particular data that you're interested in. If you're interested in traffic and transit and congestion in your city, perhaps you want to look at models of other cities' data that's been published already. You may want to look at parking data and parking occupancy. It turns out that at Itron, we investigated this a little bit, and it turns out that parking occupancy alone, which drives a business model, says the higher occupancy you have, the more revenue you're going to generate, is not the best solution. Because having 100% occupancy is impossible to begin with. And as you approach these high level of occupancies, other things happen in that data. So this is a complex sort of data scientist job as well as a social job for your city. So I think it's really important to understand where that data is and be able to share that easily. So one of the things we want to do in the blueprint is identify those places where you can go and grab data that's important to your planning process or important to your organization. Data use cases, of course, we talked a little bit about those. This licensing is a huge area I think we can benefit from. You know, Uber has tons of data. There are lots of data sources that are out there that people aren't aware of generally that could be very useful to your organization or city or as an individual innovator. So CRADA, as we talked about, data.gov is another location. If we try to navigate data licensing, for example, it becomes a complex place. Now, one of the questions that came up in our kickoff meeting was, does data licensing include inheritance? So if you say, I've got a free portal, but I'm then as an individual, I'm going to get applauded here. Let's see. So anyway, let me skip to our slide here. Join us in room 148 tomorrow, and we can talk about this stuff in detail, and there's the Google link. So thank you very much.